Today I'm going to teach you everything I did to triple my testosterone levels naturally without taking steroids, spending my life at the gym, or following a strict diet. And we're going to cover absolutely everything that transformed me from being overweight, depressed, and burnt out into the healthiest, happiest, most jacked, shredded, productive, and focused version of myself. I'm 36 years old now, and according to the doctors and the medical community, my testosterone levels should be dropping. Not only have I been able to triple my testosterone, but I've also been able to maintain them at the high end of the healthy range. And I'll make a promise to you right now. If you watch this video to the end, if you listen, but most importantly, if you implement everything that I teach you, I guarantee this video is going to be the most valuable one you watch today, and it's probably going to change the entire trajectory of your life. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to split this video into 4 parts. Firstly, we're going to talk about your diet and your nutrition. Then we're going to move on to the habits that you need to be implementing. Next up, we're going to talk about how to work out. And finally, we're going to finish up talking about the supplements that I've taken to help me to do all this. So the very first and probably the most important thing that I did, which has moved the needle the most, I would say, is I lost all of the excess body fat that I was holding on to. I actually lost over 45 pounds. What I didn't know then that I do now is that leaner men tend to have higher testosterone levels. And that's because people think of testosterone as men with the biggest muscles. But what it's really about is the percentage of your body that's lean mass. The amount of muscle that you carry is secondary to that and almost a byproduct of being leaner and therefore having the higher testosterone. It's also going to be much easier for you to build muscle when you're leaner because your body is operating more efficiently. And it's also going to be producing more testosterone, which is going to make building muscle easier. But I did it all wrong. I was very motivated and I wanted to lose as much weight as possible, as fast as possible. Typical bloke, right? I understood about calorie deficits, but I didn't understand the importance of macronutrients and the value that they have to your health. I thought I had to give up carbohydrates. I also thought I had to be in really extreme calorie deficits. I'm talking like 1,200 a day. I wasn't a personal trainer and a nutritionist at the time, which I am now, and I didn't really know what I was doing. The first thing you want to be doing is understanding what your maintenance calorie number is. If this is brand new to you, let me quickly explain it. Your maintenance calories is the number of calories that you burn based on your lifestyle and your physiology, your age, your weight, your height, and your sex. It's a number that's unique to everybody, and there's a very simple rudimentary equation you can use to calculate your maintenance calories right now. Just take your body weight in pounds, not in kilograms, in pounds, and multiply it by 15. It's obviously a pretty rough and ready rudimentary equation, and when I work with my clients one-on-one, we use a bit more of an advanced algorithm to calculate their precise maintenance calories. But most importantly, it's going to give you a good start point. Just having an awareness of what your maintenance calorie number is going to put you ahead of 90 to 95% of people. Once you understand your maintenance calories, you then need to put yourself into a caloric deficit. This is where over time you are consuming fewer calories than you are burning. And as a result of this, your body has no choice but to use the stored energy, your body fat, as fuel. A lot of people like to try and stick to a 500 calorie deficit per day. And the reason being is that there are 3,500 calories in 1 pound of body fat. And if you multiply 500 by 7, because there's 7 days in a week, that's going to add up to 3,500. So a lot of people like to stick to the 500 calorie deficit because they know if they do that, according to the maths, they're going to lose 1 pound of fat per week, which is nice in theory, but in practical application, in real life, that can get a little bit tricky because Monday is very different to Thursday, is very different to Saturday, is very different to Sunday. Not only that, stuff goes wrong, whether it's stress with money, with work, with family, with friends, whether you get hit by a bus, hopefully you don't, things happen. So it's all well and good having a plan to stick to a 500 calorie deficit every single day and being very regimented to it. And don't get me wrong, when you're having a good week, you can absolutely do it and you'll feel good for having that regularity. But what I would encourage you to do is a slightly different strategy. I would recommend that you still aim for a 500 calorie deficit, but you don't necessarily worry about hitting it every single day. So let me explain what I mean. Firstly, what you want to do is take that maintenance calorie number that you've just calculated and then minus 500. Okay, so this is now going to be your recommended daily calorie intake. What I want you to do then is multiply that number by 7. This is now the number of calories that you've got to consume in the bank every single week. Let's say your maintenance calorie number is 2,500. Let's use very easy maths, okay? So I'm going to minus 500. My recommended daily calorie intake is going to be 2,000. If I multiply 2,000 by 7 for the 7 days in the week, that's going to be 14,000 calories. Okay, so I'm going to start every single Monday with 14,000 calories in my calorie bank. I can withdraw as many of those calories as I want, but I need to make them last all week. Because if I go over, I'm going to go into my overdraft. And if I go into my overdraft, it means I'm going to have to make up for it next week, which means I'm going to have fewer calories to consume next week. Equally, though, I don't really want to leave too many excess calories in the bank account at the end of the week. Because we have to remember, whilst we want to be in that calorie deficit, calories are our fuel, guys. And if we don't have the energy, if we don't have the drive, if we don't have the fuel from our calories, everything is going to be a lot harder. So the best thing that you can do to boost your testosterone naturally is to lose the body fat. But you also don't want to be doing this in a massive hurry and a rush, because that's what most people do. And that's the same reason that most people fail. They try and go in too aggressively. They get off to a great start, but then ultimately they give up and they fail and they feel worse for it. If you take this approach, which I like to call the eagle eye approach, and look at your calories in the context of your whole week rather than your day, it gives you a lot more control and freedom. It enables you to zoom out and try and figure out, okay, well, I know I'm going out on Thursday night for date night with the missus. I know I'm going for a few beers with the boys on a Saturday. So those are going to be my high calorie days where I'm going to allow myself a little bit more freedom. But I also know Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are going to be pretty easy. It's just kind of get up, go to work, usual routine. So I'm going to make those days a little bit lower calorie. It also tends to be that, let's be honest, at the start of the week, motivation for health and fitness is at its highest, whereas it's at the back end of the week when you're a little bit worn out, you're tired, you just want to relax a little bit at the weekend. If you do this strategy, it's going to give you a lot more freedom, a lot more control. What it also does is it kind of forces you a little bit to be more planned. So now every Sunday night, you can sit down and roughly plan out your week. When are going to be your high calorie days? When are going to be your low calorie days? It doesn't need to be a precise science, guys, but just being a little bit more planned, a little bit more reflective, I promise you, it goes a long way when it comes to this stuff. Ultimately, we want your calorie deficit, your fat loss to be sustainable. The real word we want here is effortless. That's what we want. Guys, honestly, I cannot emphasize this enough. Losing the excess body fat is the biggest needle mover when it comes to boosting your testosterone naturally. The calorie deficit is the principle that sits above all the methods. And what I mean by methods is the diet of your choice. Or if you wanted to do intermittent fasting, again, that's another method. Now, when it comes to the specifics of what you're eating, I would always recommend a balanced omnivorous diet that contains plant products and animal product. And this is because each of the macronutrients, your protein, your carbs, and your fat, play an important role. And there's going to be people watching this, I already know, who are thinking that carbohydrates are terrible and that they actually make your testosterone level come down and they spike your insulin and blah, 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 blah. I've heard all this before. There's actually a whole thing around this called the insulin hypothesis, but it's a hypothesis that's never been proven. What you also have to remember, guys, is that carbohydrates are your body's preferred source of energy. Your body also has the ability to produce carbohydrates if you don't feed your body with them yourself. This process is called gluconeogenesis, and it sounds fancy, but if you invert the word, you can make sense of it. So gluconeogenesis, so let's invert it. So Genesis is the creation, neo is new, and gluco is glucose, which is sugar, which is what carbohydrates are broken down into. Now, this process, like I say, it happens in the liver if your body isn't fueled with carbohydrates. So what it does is it breaks down the fat and the protein, which you must be eating if you're not eating carbohydrates, and it turns them, it converts them into carbohydrates. Now, the real negative side effect of that process is that it means your protein and your fats aren't being used for their main functions. Protein helps your health at a cellular level. People think about it just in the context of building muscle. And you absolutely cannot build muscle without the presence of protein in your diet, but it's also responsible for, like I say, your cellular health. So everything from your skin, your hair, your nails, just your general well-being as well. And meanwhile, fat is actually very important when it comes to your testosterone levels because it's responsible for supporting your endocrine system, which is your hormonal health. So balanced, omnivorous diet, guys. Don't be scared on the carbs and try and have plant and animal-based products. Now, when you're looking to lose body fat, you want to be in that calorie deficit like we already spoke about. But what you also want to be focusing on is having a high protein diet. The biggest benefit to your health is what I just talked about, how it can help you at a cellular level. But the other big benefit of protein is that it's the most satiating of all three of the macronutrients. What this means is that it fills you up the most. It prevents crashes like carbohydrates can, so it stabilizes your energy levels, and it also requires the most energy to break down within your body. And as a result of all that, it's going to be very hard to overconsume on your calories if you're sticking to a high protein diet. Having a high protein diet is also going to be great for your testosterone levels because the amino acids, which is what protein is made up of, are the building blocks of life itself. And the other general rule of thumb that I would say around your diet, without being too specific, is to try and have a high fiber diet, because fiber is actually impossible for your body to break down, and it's very voluminous. If you think of vegetables, which are probably the most commonly known high fiber foods, they're very voluminous. And if it's not possible for your body to digest them and break it down, what's going to happen? All of that volume is going to sit in your stomach. And if your stomach is physically full to the top, again, it's going to be harder for you to overconsume on your calories, guys. So without getting into the absolute specifics, those are some very good general rules of thumb to help you lose that excess body fat. Calorie deficit, make it sustainable. Think about your food in the context of the week rather than the day. Stick to a high protein diet and a high fiber diet. But there's also some specific foods that you can eat. They're going to naturally boost your testosterone directly. What these foods all have in common is that they are high in dietary fat. And remember, I said that dietary fat helps to support your endocrine system, your hormonal health. But they also tend to be very good at flushing out the cortisol, which is the stress hormone within your body, because of their antioxidant qualities. And cortisol has an inverted relationship to testosterone. And what that means is when your cortisol level is high, when you are chronically stressed, it makes it very difficult for you to maintain or boost your testosterone levels naturally. So one of the real goals of this whole process, and I discovered this when I did it myself, and we're going to talk more about it when we talk about the habits, is lowering your stress levels. And one of the ways you can do that is through these specific foods. And those foods are fatty fish, particularly salmon and mackerel, nuts, and particularly Brazil nuts and almonds, pomegranate, which you can get in juice, eggs, which are high in dietary fat and in protein. Spinach is a fantastic vegetable to have, and red meat, because red meat contains creatine. Red meat is actually one of the only ways to get creatine into your diet without supplementing it. And we're going to talk more about creatine when we get onto the supplement section, but very quickly here, the reason this helps to boost your testosterone is because creatine enables you to do more. It increases your work capacity. It increases the frequency and the volume that you can lift in the gym. Before we move on to talk about the daily habits that I use to help me triple my testosterone levels, I want to talk a little bit more about some other stuff you can do with your food, with your diet. Now, these are kind of like optional extras. This is like the VIP bougie section, but if you can throw this in, it's just going to help accelerate the process even more. So first and foremost is the quality of the food that you're eating. One thing I would definitely recommend you do is cut out as much processed food as possible. But where you can, if you have the resources, I would also recommend you opt for the organic options as well. All the herbicides and pesticides that are used in the production of the food we eat today are going to negatively affect your endocrine system. They effectively are like blockers against having a healthy hormonal system. So again, this isn't going to be a massive needle mover, guys, but if you have the ability, eating organic food and certainly limiting the amount of processed food that you eat, because another thing people don't realize is that processed food isn't produced, it's manufactured, because it's not actually real food. That's going to hugely help as well. And the last thing to say on this is around tap water. If you can, I would get a filter to put on your tap. You can pick these up on Amazon now. They're not that expensive. And this is going to help because there's a lot of evidence out there nowadays that's showing that there are low levels, trace levels of estrogen in the water supply. Now, estrogen is obviously the female sex hormone, and again, it works in counterbalance to your testosterone. All right, let's talk a little bit about the habits that I use to triple my testosterone. Now, I touched on it earlier, but I'll kind of want to reinforce this point home for you guys. The main goal when it comes to habits and the habits we want to adopt to boost our testosterone naturally is to reduce our stress and to improve our sleep. Now, let me explain why that's important, and then we'll talk through the habits one by one. So, as I said, cortisol, which is your stress hormone, has an inverted relationship to testosterone. So when cortisol is high, when stress is high, it makes it very difficult for you to boost and maintain healthy levels of testosterone. And you know what it's like when your stress levels are high, when you're in that tunnel vision zone, all you can think about is the problem that's in front of you. You're kind of in fight or flight survival mode. You're not really thinking about, oh, is my testosterone levels good? You're just trying to get through the day. Now, don't get me wrong, stress is always going to be there. Stress is actually, when used properly, helpful. It's useful. It keeps us alive. It's healthy to an extent. Chronic stress, however, is not. And a lot of chronic stress these days happens because of the lifestyle that people live. So we want to be reducing that. What we also want to be doing is improving our sleep, both the quantity, the quality, and I should also say the regularity. If we do those three things, if we improve the quality, quantity, and regularity of our sleep, what this is going to do is help our endocrine system, our hormonal system. When you are asleep, that is when the most testosterone and HGH, human growth hormone, is released into your bloodstream. But it's also when all your other hormones are brought back into balance. And you have a lot of hormones. So obviously, when you're asleep, and you're getting a good quality sleep, your stress levels are going to come down. But what's also going to happen is your hunger hormones are going to come into balance. So you have leptin and you have ghrelin. Leptin is designed to keep you feeling full, whereas ghrelin is designed to send signals that you are hungry. Now, we want that leptin level to be nice and high, and we want that ghrelin level to be nice and low. And I'm sure you can relate to this. If you've woken up after a terrible night's sleep, your brain is just telling you to grab anything in sight. And the first thing that tends to be in sight is some kind of high sugar, unhealthy snack or something like that. And you get off to a bad start with the day. Maybe you've had 15 coffees and the rest of the day follows suit, okay? If you've woken up after a good night's sleep and your hormones are in the right place, everything's going to be a lot easier for you. Okay, so let's get into the habits themselves. I've got 5 for you, and these are scientifically proven to both help reduce your stress and improve your sleep quantity and quality. The first one is sunlight, getting as much of it as possible. I describe sunlight as free steroids. Exposure to sunlight is crucial because it naturally boosts your exposure to vitamin D levels, which helps with the production of testosterone. Next up is a habit to actually remove from your life, and that's limiting stimulants. Caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol in particular. Whilst these stimulants have very obvious short-term benefits and give you a nice dopamine hit, in the long term, they're going to elevate your cortisol and they're going to reduce your sleep quality. And like I said, well-rested bodies are better at hormone production and regulation. Another one that you probably won't realize has a very positive effect on your testosterone levels is actually just socializing with other men. And bonus points if you do this in a competitive environment, and if you're able to do this with men who you can kind of just tell have high testosterone levels. Doing this has been proven to stimulate the release of testosterone, it elevates your mood, but it also distracts you from the menial problems that you have in your life. And it gives your brain that little bit of a break from the stress. And another huge benefit of this one, guys, is that if you're spending time around successful guys, high testosterone men, alpha males, whatever you want to call them, then you are going to adopt their habits, their drive, their motivation, and their behaviors. You are going to become like them. And if you become like them, you will get the results that they have got. Next up is cold exposure. Now, if you're brand new to this, I wouldn't recommend jumping straight in the ice bath head first. What I would suggest you do is start with the cold showers, get up to 45 seconds, 1 minute, and then kind of graduate up to an ice bath. But there is nothing like a cold shower or an ice bath in the morning to wake you up and get the adrenaline pumping. These practices have also been proven to increase your testosterone levels by enhancing testicular function. And your testes, your testicles, is where your testosterone is actually produced. But more than anything, guys, take the science away from it. If you start your day with a cold shower or with an ice bath, if you have one available to you at your home or your gym, it's just going to wake you up. And if you're awake, if you're alert, if you're up, if you start the day with a hard thing, it's going to make everything else that you have to do in the rest of your day seem easier. And if you haven't kind of already guessed this now, the real way to boost your testosterone naturally is all-encompassing. It's holistic. It's taking on lots of different approaches. It's all about doing more. It's all about taking action. That's the biggest thing that comes from all of this. And it's an effect that's generated from momentum. When you're first getting started, all of this stuff might seem difficult. It might seem overwhelming. It might seem like, how the heck am I going to fit all of this in? I guarantee you, if you just slowly over time build this up like you were building a tower block or something like that, you will look back in 1, 2, even 3 months and realize how far you've come and how much more stuff you've implemented. And last but not least is regular walking. Now, this is going to play a huge role when it comes to your fat loss when it comes to the first thing we spoke about. The calorie deficit is obviously the main principle in what you want to do with your nutrition to lose that fat. But a lot of people think when it comes to losing fat, they have to be in the gym 6 or 7 days a week. But think about it in this context. If you were to spend 6 days a week in the gym, 2 hours a session or something like that, training like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you would only be in the gym for 6 to 7% of your week. So the other 93% is going to count for a lot more, right? If you think about it, if you do the maths, it counts for about 30 times more. And don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you not to exercise, and we're going to talk about how to do the different types of exercise that are going to help boost your testosterone naturally in a minute. But what I would say when it comes to losing the fat is not to focus on the fitness in the gym, is to focus on the food, but also to focus on your movement and on your steps in particular, on your walking. Because it's much easier to sustainably walk 45 minutes to 60 minutes every single day than it is to run 30 minutes 4 times a week, or say that you're going to lift weights 6 times a week, or whatever it might be. If you're doing that and if you're motivated and if you enjoy it, absolutely fantastic. But if you say you're going to do it and then don't do it, you're kind of setting yourself up to fail before you've even started. But I want you to realize that you don't need to be doing that to lose the fat. And actually, what's a much easier and more sustainable way to do it is by focusing on your steps and by focusing on your walking. My personal training clients who lose the most weight the fastest are the ones who walk the most. I've got 2 clients who I'm working with right now who I can think of in particular, who are walking 12 to 15,000 steps per day. And they are losing 1 kilogram per week like clockwork. And yes, they are in a calorie controlled diet. I'm giving them all the advice that I'm giving you guys here today. They're tracking their calories. They're sticking to their calorie deficit. They're not being too restrictive. They're looking at the calories in the context of the week rather than individual days. They're planning their week in advance. They're adopting these healthy habits. But the biggest needle mover for them, what makes it so consistent and so predictable, is the walking. By walking 12 to 15,000 steps a day, they've kind of proven the model in their head that they're going to lose 1 kilo per week as long as they stick to that easy 500 calorie deficit that they are doing. But the other massive underrated benefit, which not many people know about when it comes to walking, is that it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is a part of your nervous system which is linked to rest, relaxation, and restoration. In other words, it reduces stress. And if the main goal here is to adopt habits to help us to reduce our cortisol, our stress hormone, and to help us sleep better, then getting outside, getting your steps in is going to be pretty beneficial, because not only are you getting your steps in, which is going to help you to create a bigger calorie deficit and lose excess body fat, you're also getting more sunlight, more daylight, which means you're getting more of those free steroids that I talked about earlier. But you're also activating that parasympathetic nervous system linked to rest, relaxation, and recovery, which means you're going to lower your cortisol levels. So when it comes to your habits, guys, I would say the best one to try and implement is walking every single day without fail. Getting into nature if you can, looking up, spending time around other people, absorbing the community, the environment, not being plugged in, wired into the matrix on your phone all the time. It gives you time to meditate, to breathe fresh air, to process your thoughts, to improve the circulation in your body. There's so many benefits, guys. I cannot speak highly enough of this. I think it's, of all the things you can do when it comes to your habits, this is the number one I would implement. Okay, shall we talk a little bit about the workout strategies that I implemented to naturally boost my testosterone levels? Yes, I think we should. So first and foremost, you want to be doing resistance training, lifting weights. And what I would suggest you do is try and do this 3 times a week as a minimum. I would also suggest that you cut out long, steady state cardio like jogging or cycling. And the reason being is that whilst this can be hugely beneficial for your mental health, there is actually science behind this that shows it can reduce the production of testosterone. So if your goal is to boost your testosterone naturally, then I would recommend resistance training over cardio. Now, when it comes to your resistance training, like I say, I would aim for 3 sessions per week. I would make those sessions full body sessions, so splitting them between doing some leg exercises and doing some upper body exercises. And I would aim to have 45 to 60-minute sessions. What I would also do is to make those sessions focus around what we call compound movements, compound exercises. These are multi-joint, multi-muscle movements that use the biggest muscles in your body. And the bigger the muscle you use, the bigger the calorie burn. So again, it's going to have a benefit there when it comes to your fat loss. But when you use the biggest muscles in your body, it's also been shown to boost the levels of testosterone in your bloodstream. So doing things like squats, deadlifts, lunges, hip thrusts, good mornings, pull-ups, push-ups, dips, bent over rows, cable rows, lat pull downs. There's probably more, but that's just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. These are compound exercises, compound movements. They are working multiple joints, multiple muscles, and they are using the biggest muscles. So I said earlier about how using the biggest muscles helps to burn the most calories. Let me explain a little bit of the science behind that, because I'm sure a lot of people would be quite interested to know it. So the bigger the muscle, the bigger the calorie burn. And the reason being, let me reverse engineer it for you. The bigger the muscle, the more oxygen your body needs to help that muscle to contract. That means your lungs have to work harder to bring in more fresh oxygen. It also means that your heart has to pump harder to pump that fresh oxygen in your blood to the muscle. It also means that your muscle has to work harder to ensure that there's a big enough contraction that you can lift the weight. All of these processes are metabolic. And what that means is that they increase the number of calories that you are burning to do them. So if you're focusing your workouts on doing these compound movements, it makes your workouts the most efficient that they can be. The next tactic and principle you want to make sure that you are embedding into your training program is progressive overload. This is where over a period of time, you are increasing the volume that you are lifting. And you can do this using three methods. You can increase the weight that you are lifting, you can increase the number of reps that you're doing per set, or you can increase the number of sets that you are doing. Now, increasing the number of sets that you're doing is the hardest, or probably the least attractive one, I should say, because it means your workouts are going to take longer. Whereas increasing the weight that you're lifting is probably the sexiest and the most appealing. And it's the one that I would recommend that you do at the beginning whilst you still can and maintaining good form. However, after a period of time, you are going to plateau when it comes to increasing the amount of weight that you can lift. When that happens, that's when you want to start manipulating the number of reps that you're doing per set. Because the volume that you're lifting is literally just the weight that you lift multiplied by the sets multiplied by the reps. So let's use a really easy example. Let's say I'm leg pressing 100 kilos and I'm doing 10 reps per set. So that means every set is going to be 1,000 kilos. Let's say I'm doing 3 sets, that's going to be 3,000 kilos. Progressive overload is achieved if I go in and do the exact same thing, but next time I do 12 reps rather than 10. Equally, progressive overload is achieved if I do the exact same thing, but do 4 sets rather than 3. Or the most attractive, and the one that I know everybody's going to do, is if I lift 120 kilos rather than 100 kilos. So you see there are multiple ways to progressively overload, and you can use a combination of one of them, of 2, or of all 3 if you want to. But there is always a way to do it, and you want to be making sure over a period of time that you are progressively overloaded. Finally, there's some interesting studies that show that explosive movements like sprints and plyometrics can rapidly increase the levels of testosterone in your bloodstream. So adding those in as little finishes at the end of your workouts, or just doing them on rest days as active recovery, can be very beneficial when it comes to boosting your testosterone. Last but not least, guys, let's talk about the supplements that I took, well, actually still take to this day, to triple my testosterone. Now, I should say straight off the bat, these supplements are all legal, they're all above board, and most importantly, none of them are going to break the bank. Now, it's important to remember that the clue is in the name when it comes to supplements, and I've left these to last on purpose. They might sound like the sexiest, and I'm sure a lot of people will think, oh, I'm just going to go and buy them and it will solve all the problem. But they are there to supplement a healthy diet, a healthy workout plan, and a healthy lifestyle, guys. If you ignore everything that I've talked about with the diet, with the training, with the habits, and just go straight for the supplements, you're going to get a 1% improvement. If you do all the other stuff and then add this on top, you're going to get a 100% improvement, because those 3 things combined move the needle 99%. The supplements support that. There's no shortcuts, there's no overnight successes, and you cannot avoid the hard work. But all of the stuff we've been through, I just cannot explain to you enough. I wish I could put it into words, the benefit of doing it. You will feel like a new man. But anyway, let's talk about those supplements. So I buy all of my supplements from a UK-based company called Bulk, and I do this for 3 reasons. Firstly, even though I don't live in Britain anymore, I live in Spain now, I am British, and where I can, I like to support British companies. Secondly, I like their transparency. They're very open and honest about the ingredients that they put into their products. And the third reason is because I like the quality of the ingredients that they put into those products. And I suppose fourthly as well, they're actually reasonably priced. They're not ripping anybody off. But I want to make it very clear, I am not sponsored by Bulk. There is no affiliate link in this video. I do not gain financially by recommending them to you. And I would always recommend that you do your own research and obviously consult with your doctor if you feel the need to before taking any of these supplements. I am telling you what I have taken, what I take to this day, and what has helped me the most when it comes to boosting my testosterone. And I should say as well that not all of these supplements have a direct impact and positive effect on boosting your testosterone, but they do have an indirect effect on positively improving your health. So I'll explain each one as we go through, and then you can make an informed decision whether you want to take these or not. So let's get into it. So the first one I want to recommend is a supplement called Dominate. And the reason I recommend this supplement is because it contains 3 vital ingredients that are all proven to directly improve your testosterone levels. So you've got D-aspartic acid, fenugreek, and zinc. And like I say, all of these have been proven to boost and then maintain healthy levels of testosterone, support libido, and help your overall hormonal health. Next up are omega-3s, which are essential fatty acids. And these support your heart health, but can also improve your testosterone levels by reducing the amount of inflammation in your body. Inflammation is known to negatively impact your testosterone levels because of the disruptive effects that it can have on your endocrine system, your hormone system. So by reducing inflammation, you're creating a more favorable environment within your body for the production of higher levels of testosterone. What you also have to realize about omega-3s is that, as I said, they support your cardiovascular health, your heart health. Now, this is important because it improves your blood flow, your body's ability to pump blood to all the places that it needs to. And this is really, really underrated because there's a quite well-known phrase, which I think I heard Gary Brecker say the first time I heard it, which is disease is basically like a lack of oxygen. And oxygen is pumped in the blood. So you really want to have as good a circulation around your body as possible. And omega-3s can help that. The next supplement is vitamin D. And this one probably won't come as a surprise to you based on how much time I spent talking to you about the benefits of getting as much sunlight as possible. But if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, in the UK, or in northern parts of the US or Canada, then I appreciate getting as much sunlight as possible is going to be very difficult. So supplement with vitamin D where you need to. And this is beneficial because there are certain cells in your testes, which again is where your testosterone is produced, called Leydig cells. Now, these cells have receptors that absorb vitamin D. And a ton of studies have proven a positive correlation between levels of vitamin D and testosterone levels. So if you can't get the sunlight directly, supplement away. What I would recommend is going for a higher dose. I think the NHS in the UK recommends a daily dose of 400 IUs, which stands for international units. It's just how they measure it. Sometimes you'll see it in micrograms. I take 4,000 IUs. I take 4,000 IUs, so 10 times the recommended dose that's given by the NHS. And again, studies have been done on this on people taking up to 30,000 IUs per day with absolutely no negative side effects. So yeah, I would definitely recommend a higher dose than what is being put out there by the government. Next up is ashwagandha, which is a herb that's been proven to reduce cortisol levels. And as we've spoken about a few times, reducing cortisol levels is going to have a positive impact on your testosterone levels because cortisol and testosterone have an inverted relationship. What's cool about ashwagandha is it's also been proven to have a positive effect on thyroid function, which can contribute to better energy levels and giving you more drive. And last but not least is creatine, which I touched on when we were talking about red meat earlier. And as I said, creatine is very hard to get naturally through your diet, and red meat is the only real source of it. And I don't think it's particularly healthy for people to adopt a full carnivore diet. Most of the studies have shown that whilst it can have some positive health benefits, it's not necessarily beneficial in the wider spectrum because it's not that balanced. So supplementing with 5 grams of creatine monohydrate every single morning, for me, is just a no-brainer. It's something I recommend to men, to women, to young people, to old people, pretty much to absolutely everybody. and not just for people who are gym goers either. But this supplement helps with your athletic performance and helps you to increase the frequency and intensity of your workouts, which then in turn, as we spoke about in the workout section, is going to help you to produce more testosterone naturally and boost those T levels. It's also going to help you to burn more calories and lose the excess body fat. So those are the 5 supplements, guys: creatine, ashwagandha, vitamin D, omega-3s, D-aspartic acid, zinc, fenugreek. But though you can get those 3 in that Dominate supplement like I spoke about. And guys, that is pretty much everything. That is all of the habits, that's all the supplements, that's the workout tactics and strategies, and that's everything I would do with your diet and the specific foods that I would recommend you eat to directly boost your testosterone levels. But before I finish, I should say this: all of this means nothing without consistency and without implementing all of it. I really would not recommend that you pick and choose from the nice shiny bits that I've said today that you like the sound of and just do those. Most people are going to watch this and they're going to think, oh, I'm going to do that one, and that one. They're not going to do the cold showers. They're not going to limit their stimulants. They're not going to train hard enough, and they're still going to cut out carbohydrates. But guys, if you implement all of the strategies, all of the tactics, all of the scientifically proven methods that I've taken you through today, and you do it consistently for a period of time, you will start to see, feel, and most importantly, become a version of yourself that you didn't even know existed. A version of yourself that you haven't felt so good since you were 18 years old. But it takes time and it takes consistency, guys. I appreciate that was a lot of information. So what I've done is gone ahead and put together a testosterone toolkit, which breaks down everything that we've spoken about today. And you can grab a copy of that by clicking a link in the description of this video. And if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all the information that I've given you in the video today, then I understand. I get it. It's a lot to take on, and figuring all of this out took me 5 years. So if you want some more personalized help and advice about how you can implement all of the stuff that I've talked you through today, then add me on Instagram. It's at Mr_Doug Campbell, and send me a direct message. And listen, we can just have a chat. I can talk you through the coaching options and packages that I've got available. And if we think it's a good fit, then we can go from there. Guys, I'm going to leave this video here. I appreciate it's Guys, I'm going to leave this video here. I hope it's been super. Guys, I'm going to leave this video here. I promised you right at the start that this was going to be the most valuable video that you've watched all day today. I really hope it has lived up to the expectation. And I can guarantee you, if you implement all the stuff that I have told you today, it is going to positively change the trajectory of your entire life. So get to work. Bye.